Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we have got another UFC preview and predictions. This Saturday night, the main event, Conor McGregor and Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Obviously, it is UFC 257. If you missed it yesterday, or if you're coming over from that video yesterday, you just want to see Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, of course, it will be later on this video, but I also just made a separate video just with that one fight. It's about 20 minutes. Again, it will be on later in this full card predictions. And folks, if you have not yet, make sure to subscribe button down below for more UFC here on the channel. Let's get into it. We're going to start in the flyweight division between Amir Albazi and Zhumagulov. I've already talked about this fight when it was supposed to happen in late November, so we're just going to play that, and I'll see y'all in a bit. Alright, so another fight here at 125 between Zhumagulov and Amir Albazi. Let's start here with Zhumagulov. Yeah, so for Zhumagulov, right, his last fight he did lose. His first fight in the UFC to Raulian Paiva. He lost that one by unanimous decision over on UFC 251 and Masvidal Usman. And yeah, it was his first fight coming over from Fight Nights Global, and he was the Fight Nights Global flyweight champion, and he had some pretty big wins over there. Because he beat Tagir Ulanbekov, who's another UFC fighter now, just beat Bruno Silva most recently. He also beat Ali Bagantinov, the former headliner of a UFC pay-per-view. He fought Demetrius Johnson for the title, and lost, obviously. But he fought DJ at UFC 174 as the main event of a pay-per-view. And did lose that fight, but yeah, of course, another fighter, Ali Bagantinov, who, real quick, after leaving the UFC, went on a pretty good run. I believe he lost to Tyson Nam, but he won a pretty big winning streak over in Fight Nights Global. And then most recently, I think he went on like a six fight winning streak, and Zhumagulov is the only guy to beat him. He beat Ali Bagantinov by split decision over last year in September, I do believe, right? So that's been Bagatinov's only loss as of late. And then also, a guy we mentioned earlier, Zhumagulov did beat Tyson Nam in Fight Nights Global as well by unanimous decision. That's how he got the shot at the flyweight championship, which he beat Tagir Ulanbekov for. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good winning streak for Zhumagulov coming in the UFC. Nam, Ulanbekov, and Ali Bagantinov, three guys who are in the UFC, well, Ali Bagantinov no longer in the UFC, a guy who actually I would really like to see in the UFC again. And yeah, and then the Raulian Paiva fight, it's interesting. Again, he did lose that fight, but again, I still think that Zhumagulov, he's got a lot of upside here. Again, forgot to mention, I mean, the dude, he's 13-4. Again, two of those losses came back in 2015. The other one is for the Paiva fight, and the other one is in 2017 Fight Nights Global. And yeah, I'm really big on Zhumagulov. I think that first fight in the UFC was just, you know, just a rare oddity for him. But yeah, he takes on a really good fighter that we talked about earlier in Amir Albazi. And again, I was really impressed with the Amir Albazi and Malcolm X Gordon fight. I thought Amir Albazi fought really well in that one. He won by triangle choke in the first round. Looked really good. His first fight in the UFC after coming over from Brave. He went 1-1 over there. And then before that, fought in Bellator. Went 2-0 in Bellator. And again, fighting some guys at Bellator. Again, he wasn't a Bellator fighter, but he was there, contracted as an independent fighter, coming in there, fighting just because they need extra fights over there, right? They went to England, and he took 2 fights there, and he won both of them. So again, 2 big wins for him under the Bellator name, and then before that, he was undefeated. I mean, got some big wins over in Scandinavian Fight Nights, UCMMA, and in Scotland too. So yeah, I mean, before fighting in Brave, he was 11-0, fought in Brave, lost to Jose Torres, which isn't a bad loss by any means as well. Another guy who's fighting really well right now in Brave too. And yeah, and then came to the UFC after getting another win in Brave, and then beat Malcolm Gordon. So for Amir Albazi, of course, we've talked about it before. He's got a really good ground game, but also his stand-up game isn't horrible too, but his ground game is where he's best at. So it's an interesting fight here because Zhumagulov, he's got a decent ground game, but I would say his stand-up game's a little bit better than his ground game, definitely. And yeah, it's a very hard fight to call because we didn't see Zhumagulov do that well in his first fight against Paiva in his first one, but for Amir Albazi, we saw him fight really well against Malcolm Gordon. So it's a very tough fight to call. As for prediction, though, I'm going Zhumagulov. Yeah, I think Zhumagulov is going to be able to get the job done here. It's just because what he did in Fight Nights Global, I feel like the first fight in the UFC was just a rare bad fight for him. And again, every fighter has a bad night, right? And I mean, we just got to go off of what he did in Fight Nights Global. The Tyson Nam win, big win. Again, it was 2 years ago, but still a really big win. Tagir Ulanbekov to win the Fight Nights Global Championship at flyweight. That's tough to do, man. Won that in the Bagantinov fight last year. Say what you want, Ali Bagantinov has been fighting really well after being cut by the UFC during the flyweight purge. And again, he lost to Horiguchi, and they cut him. Yeah, again, you lose to Horiguchi and you get cut from the UFC, ridiculous, because Horiguchi, Ryzen champion right now as well. So, again, I think Zhumagulov's going to be able to get the job done. I'm going to say by decision. Again, I've predicted a lot of those so far tonight, but I'm excited for this one. Albazi's very good, man. His ground game's really good, and Zhumagulov's stand-up game is very damn good too. So it's a really fun fight here, but we're going to go with the Zhumagulov decision victory. So next up, we have got Movsar Evloev taking on Nick Lentz. Let's start here with Movsar Evloev. So last fight was in Abu Dhabi on Whitaker Till. Of course, the first run in Fight Island. He beat Mike Grundy by unanimous decision. Really just put it on Mike Grundy for the entire 3-round fight. Did pretty well on the feet, did pretty well on the ground as well. Overall, man, Movsar Evloev, really good, really well-balanced fighter. He can get the job done on the ground. He can also get it done on the feet. But you're going to see him get a lot of decisions. The Enrique Barzola fight, pretty good win again on Maya Askren in Singapore. And then his first fight in the UFC was against Sungwoo Choi. That was on Overeem and Oleinik over in St. Petersburg, Russia. Movsar Evloev is the former M1 bantamweight champion. Defended their title a couple times through 2017 to 2018. Of course, signed in the UFC in late 2018. And yeah, 3-0 so far in the UFC. But again, all those wins in the UFC are by decision, but he's been, for the most part, pretty dominant in those last 3 fights. He was supposed to fight Nate Landwehr in December. That fight did end up getting canceled. I do believe it's because one of Evloev's cornermen tested positive. Yeah, that is right. I think Evloev himself, did test positive for COVID for that fight. But Evloev, current record of 13-0, has been pretty dominant in all of his fights. Again, looked really good in M1, defended their title multiple times over at bantamweight. This fight, however, on Tapology says this fight's gonna be 145 pounds. A couple other sources though have it at 150 catch weight. I'm not really sure on what weight this fight is going to be at between Evloev and Nick Lentz. I'm assuming it's probably 150, but who knows? It's going to be either 145, 150. Should not make too big of a difference. Of course, Evloev is a former bantamweight. He did fight there a long time ago in M1. He was the champion at bantamweight over there, and then he's fought featherweight recently as well. So yeah, currently I think the UFC website does have it at 150, so I do believe it will be a catchweight fight. Let's talk about Evloev's opponent though, and Nick Lentz. So Nick Lentz, one of these guys who have been in the UFC for a damn long time, and he's been fighting in the promotion since 2009. His first fight was on UFC 103 in Dallas, Texas. Rich Franklin versus Vitor Belfort at catchweight at 195 pounds. Oh my goodness, Vitor won that fight by KO. Also on the card, Junior Dos Santos versus Mirko Krokop. I forgot that fight even happened. Yeah, I forgot that fight happened. Apparently it did. It was the co-main event of UFC 103. Of course, Nick Lentz was on the undercard. He did get a win there. And yeah, Nick Lentz's UFC career got off to a very good start. Eventually, did lose to Charles Oliveira, though. He was on a big, 5-fight winning streak. Ran into Charles Oliveira, lost that one. That was on Czech Congo versus Pat Barry, UFC Live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Just go watch Czech Congo versus Pat Barry. Okay, Pat Barry, it looks like he has Czech Congo. Czech Congo's out. Somehow Congo pops up to his feet and boom, knocks out Pat Barry. Just go watch the fight. It's absolutely incredible. But Nick Lentz goes on a 3-fight losing streak through 2011 to 2012. He comes back, picks up a couple wins, and he's just been iffy ever since. I mean, he lost to Chad Mendes. That's when he tried to break into the top 10. Did lose to Mendes over on Demetrius Johnson and Joseph Benavidez in Sacramento, California in 2013. That was the second fight. And again, he's just been iffy ever since. He did lose to Charles Oliveira again, actually 2 more times. On Dos Anjos Lee in 2019, and then he lost to him on Condit and Alves over in 2015 as well. So yeah, he has lost 3 times to Charles Oliveira in his career. I think the first one was no contest, of course, so it doesn't count because Oliveira had an illegal knee in that fight. Still lost the fight. For Nick Lentz, though, overall record of 30 wins, 11 losses, and 2 draws so far. Lentz, another one of these guys, pretty well balanced. He can get the fight done on the feet and get it on the ground as well. Most recently, for Lentz, it has been the knockouts. When he does win, again, decisions too, but the most recent finish for Nick Lentz was a win over Gray Maynard over on UFC 229. That was on Khabib Conor, of course. I believe that was Gray Maynard's last fight to this point in time. Yeah, it was. I don't believe Gray Maynard is fighting again. And yeah, he did. Okay, he didn't retire, but the UFC cut him. I doubt Gray Maynard's going to fight again. But of course, Nick Lentz did beat Gray Maynard in that fight. Most recently, though, did lose to Arnold Allen by unanimous decision in Raleigh, North Carolina on Blaze Dos Santos, and then lost to Charles Oliveira before that. Again, the Dos Anjos League card in Rochester by TKO. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it up front with you. I think Movsar Evloev wins this fight pretty easily. It just feels like whatever Lentz can do, Evloev can do better. And Evloev's just kind of a younger version of Nick Lentz in both these guys' career at this point. Nick Lentz is 36, Evloev is 26, 10 years younger than him. And Evloev's wrestling is really phenomenal. I mean, really good Greco. And yeah, I think the wrestling's going to be too much in this one. I think Evloev's probably going to take this one to the mat. He's not bad on the feet either, so if he stays up there, I think he probably will have a good chance. Even though Nick Lentz is a very good striker, I think Evloev, though, can be able to get the fight on the ground, can keep it standing if he needs to, and I think he will win a pretty decisive unanimous decision win. Alright, so next up, we've got Mahmoud Muradov taking on Andrew Sanchez. Let's start here with Mahmoud Muradov. So, last fight in the UFC did knock out Trevor Smith. This was a while ago. It was in December of 2019, so he did not fight in 2020. It wasn't really entirely his fault. Of course, that fight his last fight against Trevor Smith was on Overeem and Rosenstruik in Washington, D.C., but his 2020, Muradov was supposed to fight Antonio Carlos Jr. to start the year. Fight never happened because Antonio Carlos Jr. did get hurt. Then he was supposed to fight Carl Roberson. That fight got called off due to the pandemic. Then he was supposed to fight Krzysztof Jotko. That fight never happened because Jotko got injured as well. And then he was supposed to fight Kevin Holland. Of course, that fight was supposed to be a banger. Then Muradov had to withdraw from that fight. I do believe he caught Rona, so that fight never happened. And now, of course, he's fighting Andrew Sanchez instead. I mean, that Kevin Holland fight could have been a big opportunity for Muradov because at the time, Kevin Holland, I do believe, was 3-0 in the year, right? Because that was the Charlie Ontiveros fight, if I'm not mistaken. It was on Halloween. Still, Holland was 3-0. Had a lot of momentum at the time. I mean, he had the Buckley knockout and everything. But Muradov could not fight that fight. So if we want to talk about Muradov's run, his two fights before 2020, well, he got the Trevor Smith fight, won that one with a big overhand in the third round. And the fight before that, I mean, he got a win over Alessio Di Chirico. And Alessio Di Chirico, hey, I mean, just beat Joaquin Buckley. Upset so far of the year, I would say. And Alessio Di Chirico, I mean, he won't talk to the media, which is okay. I mean, I kind of get his point, but really don't at the same time. It's all right. But yeah, Mahmoud Muradov did beat Di Chirico in 2019. That was on Hermansen Cannonier over in Copenhagen, Denmark. And again, now looking like a solid win because, yes, Di Chirico has lost, 3 times? He lost 3 times in a row in the UFC, but then the Buckley win kept him in the promotion, so big ups on that one. But for Muradov, before his stint in the UFC, went on a big winning streak from 2017 on. He has not lost. The one loss he did have in 2016 was against David Ramirez. It was for the XFN middleweight championship. He did lose that fight, but it was because of an injury for Muradov. He ended up fighting David Ramirez 2 years later, and he beat him up, knocked him out, I believe, early in the fight. So if we're looking for an actual loss other than injury for Muradov, well, you got to go all the way back to 2014, December 2014. He did lose a fight over in Fighting Zone by unanimous decision over there in the Czech Republic. So that's the last time Muradov lost. He has not lost since 2014 other than that injury he did suffer against David Ramirez. And then, yeah, I mean, Muradov, very well balanced fighter. Again, one of these guys, but for the most part, it's going to be the knockout threat. He's got really good hands. And yes, if the fight does go to the ground, Muradov is not bad, but I mean, his primary assets are his striking. I mean, his striking is incredible. He's got 16 knockouts to his name so far, and that's something Andrew Sanchez will have to worry about because Sanchez, we've seen him get knocked out before in the UFC, so that's kind of concerning if you're backing Andrew Sanchez in this fight. I think it's a pretty good matchup for Muradov, and because Sanchez is a striker for the most part as well, I doubt this fight hits the mat, and I think if it does, probably got to give Mahmoud Muradov the advantage there as well. So let's talk about his opponent though, and Andrew Sanchez. So Andrew Sanchez is coming into this fight though. He has won 3 out of his last 4. His last win was against Wellington Turman, a pretty good knockout win over in Vegas on Louis Olenek. He did win knockout there, performance of the night on that card. And before that, I mean, he ran DeMarvin Vettori, lost that fight by unanimous decision. Before that, he beat Marc-Andre Barriault, and Marc-Andre Barriault, I mean, hasn't been great in the UFC. There's not much I can say. He did beat Oscar Peota, but apparently that fight got overturned. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, Barriault's not been great. And then before that, Sanchez did beat Marcus Perez by unanimous decision. And if you've seen the channel before, I'm not big on Marcus Perez. Yeah, I mean, I thought he could have had a chance of the Dricus du Plessis fight because Dricus du Plessis didn't start that well in that fight, and then Dricus du Plessis landed that big right and ended the fight. That's Marcus Perez though. And so those are his wins in the UFC. Let's talk about the losses though. The Marvin Vettori fight, I mean, there's nothing we can take away from in that fight. Vettori's now looking like he's a top 5 guy. Hey, he might be fighting for the title soon. Who knows, because of the Adesanya first fight. But the Ryan James fight's kind of concerning. He did lose in 2017 to Ryan James. Yeah, what do you want me to say? Ryan James has not fought since 2017. He retired. Yeah, there's not much I can say about that Ryan James-Andrew Sanchez fight. He just got knocked out in the third round. The Anthony Smith fight, I mean, that was before Anthony Smith made his kind of run to the top. What is he, like number 7 now? But that was at middleweight. That was on Demetrius Johnson and William Heiss. I forgot that fight even happened, honestly. It was in Kansas City. But yeah, Anthony Smith beat Andrew Sanchez in that fight. And then his first 2 fights in the UFC, not bad. And the Trevor Smith win, again, on Lewis and Shamil Abdurakhimov, and also on the he beat Khalil Rountree in his first fight in the UFC on the Joanna and Claudia Gadelha final of the Ultimate Fighter. Of course, Andrew Sanchez did end up winning that Ultimate Fighter show. Of course, it was on the Ultimate Fighter finale card. Sanchez was the Ultimate Fighter. But yeah, you just gotta look back at the Sanchez losses are what concerned me. The Ryan James loss, not great. The Anthony Smith loss, not great. The Vettori loss, I mean, it's all right. It's Marvin Vettori. And I just think this fight's really set up well for Muradov. And yeah, I think Muradov will probably get the job done. I'll say he's gonna knock him out. I mean, I really like what we're getting out of McMann Muradov recently in the UFC. Yes, he hasn't fought in a year, but the Trevor Smith fight was pretty impressive, and I just don't think Andrew Sanchez is gonna win this one. Again, if it heads to the ground, I think Muradov will probably have a slight advantage there too. Honestly though, you just don't know, because both these guys usually are strikers. And I'm just going off of what we've seen in the past. Sanchez has been knocked out recently. Well, 3 years ago, but still, he has been knocked out. Muradov throws some really nice punches. So I'm going to say McMann Muradov will get a KO finish. No round in this one, but I do think Muradov will get the knockout. Well, this is a fight on a UFC pay-per-view, not on the pay-per-view, but it still is on the undercard. This will be on ESPN for the world to see. We got Khalil Rountree Jr. and Marcin Prachnio. Yeah, let's start with Marcin Prachnio. The UFC run has not been great. 0-3. He fought really well over in one championship. He was fighting really well in Final Fight Championship as well over in Europe. And again, one championship, amazing for Marcin Prachnio. Went 3-0 over there, or 4-0, excuse me. The UFC run was not good. The Sam Alvey fight, what happened in that fight? Marcin Prachnio, like, okay, I'm no fighter myself, but bro, the Alvey Prachnio fight was horrible. Not for Alvey, but for Prachnio. Just, dude, he closed his eyes basically and just started throwing. And Sam Alvey, yes, he's a brawler, one of those old-fashioned brawlers, but still, Alvey knew when to pick his shots in that fight, and Prachnio was just throwing everything wildly as hell. And Alvey picked him apart in that fight. And Sam Alvey got the job done. Didn't really pick him apart. He knocked him out in the first round. The Magomed Ankalaev fight, now I will give Prachnio a slight pass to this one because Magomed Ankalaev is a top 15 name. He's fighting really well as of late, but still he did lose that fight. He did get head kicked like a minute in. That was on Hunt Olenek over in Russia. And then the Mike Slur Rodriguez fight, yeah, that was like the co-main event, I think, of Munoz Egger. Yeah, Marcin Prachnio did lose that fight. Mike Slur Rodriguez did get him with an elbow and finished him on the ground. So yeah, what Marcin Prachnio are we gonna get in this fight? I don't know. He has not been good at all in the UFC. I'm just gonna keep it honest with you. He has not been very good. It was just disappointing because he fought really well over in one championship. And it was, for me, it was the Sam Alvey fight where it's like, I just don't know what this guy's gonna do in the promotion, and it hasn't been anything yet. Now, he's got to take on a pretty good opponent here in Khalil Rountree Jr., so let's talk about him. Now, it's not like Khalil Rountree's just been knocking out every dude in his sight, but he has been doing all right so far in the UFC. And the Jan Cutelaba fight, I mean, Cutelaba's a pretty good talent. Cutelaba did put him away in the first round over in Copenhagen. The Eric Anders one, not bad. It wasn't a tremendous fight by any stretch of the imagination, but Khalil Rountree did get the job done against Eric Anders. Those are two guys who throw a lot into their punches, and Khalil Rountree Jr. did win a decision. Wasn't the most entertaining fight, but he did win. Now, the Johnny Walker fight, yeah, Khalil Rountree got knocked out by Johnny Walker. This was the height. This is probably the height of the Johnny Walker hype. Yes, I think after the Justin Ledet fight, everyone really got on board with Johnny Walker, but this was the very beginning. This was Walker's first fight in the UFC. They give him a guy in Khalil Rountree who has, Khalil Rountree at this time was on a UFC main card, on a Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier main card of a pay-per-view. You had to pay to watch Khalil Rountree Jr. beat Gohan Saki. But Johnny Walker goes in there, beats up Khalil Rountree, puts him away in the first round over in Argentina. And then, of course, Johnny Walker beat Justin Ledet, Misha Cirkunov, then he lost twice, and now he got that one over Ryan Spann, which was not impressive. I mean, yeah, he put him down, but damn, I mean, Johnny Walker took some shots in the Ryan Spann fight. Yeah, Rountree lost to Walker, and then before that, we mentioned the Gohan Saki fight. fight really didn't make that much sense at the time. Gohan Saki, we know he was a great K1 guy, but like, yeah, he beat Henrique de Silva, and then he got the fight against Rountree Jr., and he lost. We haven't seen Gohan Saki since. He's still in the video game though, for some reason. And then Rountree, I mean, starting the UFC, did beat Paul Craig, which is a pretty big win now. I mean, it's the classic way on how to beat Paul Craig. You keep him standing, you probably win the fight, and that's what Rountree did. In his first couple fights in the UFC, of course, we talked about the Andrew Sanchez fight on The Ultimate Fighter, and then after that, the Tyson Pedro fight. Took him to the ground, did Tyson Pedro, and beat him. That was on Whitaker Brunson over in Melbourne, Australia. Now, how do you beat Rountree? It's pretty simple. You take him to the ground, or you just outstrike him. Now, do I think Marcin Prachnio is going to outstrike Rountree? Well, I think the one championship version of Marcin Prachnio does. The UFC version? I don't think so. I think Marcin Prachnio, his striking is just off, and yeah, Khalil Rountree has been knocked out before, but I think Khalil Rountree is just a little bit better than Marcin Prachnio. Actually, I wouldn't say just a little bit. He is better than Marcin Prachnio at both their points in their careers right now. And it's unfortunate, but I think Prachnio will probably be done with the UFC if he does lose this fight. If he wins, hey, both these guys probably get another shot. Yeah, Rountree's not going to be cut. But I think this is going to be a win for Khalil Rountree. I don't see how he loses this fight. Prachnio's not taking him to the ground. It's going to be a stand-up fight. I think Rountree, again, Prachnio's run in the UFC has not been great. 3 straight knockouts. It's unfortunate, but I think it's going to be 4 in a row. I think Khalil Rountree will probably knock him out. Now we have got Juliana Pena taking on Sarah McMann. Let's start here with Sarah McMann. So her last fight in the UFC was a win against Lena Landsberg. That was on Blaze dos Santos in January of 2020. She did get the job done there. Before that, she lost to Marion Renault by triangle choke, and before that, lost to Caitlin Vieira by arm triangle as well. Sarah McMann, very good wrestler, but recently, I mean, it's either she's been getting submission wins or she's getting submitted. And the Caitlin Vieira fight, well, we know Caitlin Vieira is a very good jiu-jitsu player, so that's expected. The Marion Renault fight, I mean, Marion Renault's not bad on the ground either, but like, come on. Marion Renault's, for the most part, a striker, and if you get, I don't know, if you get choked out by Marion Renault, I don't know. Sarah McMann, yes, we know her grappling's not great, but she's a really good wrestler. I mean, she's a really good wrestler. The grappling, it's suspect sometimes. And then she won a pretty big win streak before that. She beat Jessica Ai, she beat Alexis Davis, she beat Gina Mazzani. All right, I mean, solid wins over there. And then before that, when you're going to like the very beginning of the UFC women's division days, we'll start with her last fight in Invicta, or her only fight in Invicta. She beat Shayna Baszler. Of course, a WWE, we mention her all the time. WWE star right now, Shayna Baszler, but still, she was a pretty decent fighter as well. She was the #1 seed, I do believe, on the Ultimate Fighter show. She did lose to Juliana Pena, but still. Sarah McMann did beat Shayna Baszler by unanimous decision in the main event of an Invicta card in Kansas City. Now, after that, she got a win in the UFC, and then they gave her Ronda Rousey. And that fight did not end too well for Sarah McMann. That was when Rousey was just going through everyone, and Rousey won that fight in, about 1 minute. Yikes. Then she beat Lauren Murphy by split decision. Okay, I mean, that was when Lauren Murphy was still fighting at 135. Not a bad win at all. But then lost to Miesha Tate, lost to Amanda Nunes. Those are expected. 2 former champions right there. Amanda Nunes, of course, still the double champ. And then the wins over Jessica Ai, Davis, Mazzani, solid. But then my main problem is the Vieira loss. Well, not really the Vieira loss. It's the Marion Renault fight. I mean, I don't know. I think if Sarah McMann's going to stand a chance in this fight, she can't get submitted. But the problem is she's fighting probably the best grappler in the division other than Amanda Nunes at this point. I mean, one of the better ones. She's fighting Juliana Pena. And now I know Juliana Pena just got submitted by Duran Duranami. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it's going to be an uphill battle for Sarah McMann. It really is going to be. She's not that much of a threat on the feet. It's to the point where I think Juliana Pena is a better striker than Sarah McMann. Again, it's going to be tough. Let's talk about Juliana Pena, though. Now, that last Juliana Pena fight, man, I picked her to beat Duran Duranami. My big upset pick of the week. And oh my goodness, Juliana Pena should have won that fight. She should have won that fight. It was 1-1 going to the third. And man, she should have won that one. You could have maybe said it was 2-0, but I think it was probably 1-1. She was winning in the third round before she lost. She was probably on her way to win that fight 2 rounds to 1. She goes for a takedown at the end of the third. And we know Juliana Pena is a really good striker. We know Duran Duranami's we know Juliana Pena is very good wrestler, grappler, and we know Duran Duranami a very good striker. Now, Juliana Pena was standing in there. She held her own against Duran Duranami on the feet. Now, Duranami was probably beating her for most of it, but Pena was doing a pretty solid job on the feet against Duran Duranami, which is tough to do. And then the end of the third round, she goes for a takedown. She gets caught in a guillotine by Duran Duranami. Oh my goodness, and Duranami put her out. Pena should have won that fight. That was Juliana Pena's first ever win by submission against Juliana Pena, one of the better grapplers. It is tough. It is really tough. Before that, she beat Nico Montano. Cool. And then before this is pre-pregnancy for Juliana Pena. She lost to Valentina Shevchenko. The main event, Denver, Colorado. That was actually a number 1 contenders fight. So Pena comes back in, beats Nico Montano. If she beat Joanna Duranami, I would probably think she would be next to the title. It's not happening. And she's still, number 5 in the rankings? But yeah, it's a tough loss against Duranami. Now, Sarah McMann, I don't think she's going to get caught in another submission against Sarah McMann. What is Sarah McMann really good at? Well, takedowns. What is Juliana Pena really good at? Fighting well. She fights pretty well off her back. And I think if Sarah McMann can land a takedown, it's probably not to her advantage, because Pena can work pretty well off her back. If Pena can get a good transition, she can reverse it. Pena can end up on top. She's even better over there. I think it's a very hard fight for Sarah McMann at all, because Juliana Pena, the way she fights on the ground, is pretty tough to deal with. And even if it's a striking fight, I think Juliana Pena will probably win that, because I was surprised on how well her striking was against Joanna Duranami. Was it great? No. But is it good enough to beat Sarah McMann? 100% yes. So I think Juliana Pena, she's got this fight on the ground. I think she's got it on the feet as well. And I think Juliana Pena is really just going to dominate this fight. I'll say she wins this one by decision, but I think it's going to be a pretty dominant effort for Pena. Next up, we have got Antonio Carlos Jr. taking on Brad Tavares. Let's start here first with Antonio Carlos Jr. So, last 2 fights in the UFC have not been great. The Uriah Hall fight was very close. He did lose that fight by split decision. That was on Cowboy and Gagey over in Vancouver, British Columbia. And then before that, he did lose to Ian Heinisch by unanimous decision, and then he went on a pretty big run up to that point. He beat Marvin Vettori, which is a pretty big win looking back at it now, beat Eric Spicely, beat Jack Marshman, and then beat Tim Boetsch, and then of course he went on that 2-fight losing streak with Heinisch and Uriah Hall. And man, Antonio Carlos Jr. has been in the UFC for a while, been fighting in the promotion since 2014. Obviously he did win the Ultimate Fighter Brazil season 3. He won the heavyweight tournament, or it was the heavyweight side of things. Of course now he is fighting at 185, so yeah. He started pretty well in his UFC career. He did lose to Patrick Cummings, which, isn't a bad loss. I guess Patrick Cummings is a UFC veteran, or was a UFC veteran. Then he lost to Dan Kelly, but then he did get things turned around most recently. The Uriah Hall loss, though, you can say that was a pretty close fight. It really was. And Uriah Hall now is fighting Chris Weidman. He's a top 8 guy. So, honestly, Antonio Carlos Jr., I know he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but it is not that bad in the long run here. But we know Antonio Carlos Jr.'s grappling is very good. It's one of these classic striker versus grappler fights. You know it's going to happen. Tavares is going to try to keep this one standing, and Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to try to drag this one to the mat, and that's the simple plan on how to beat Antonio Carlos Jr. And I know, the way he beat Tim Boetsch, took him to the ground, finished him on the ground. Jack Marshman took him to the ground, finished him on the ground, all by rear naked choke. Eric Spicely fight as well. He is very good at getting the fight to the ground, locking in that body triangle, and finishing with the rear naked choke. So that's what you got to look out here for Antonio Carlos Jr. Again, very good threat on the ground. Let's talk about his opponent, though. Of course, the striker in this matchup, in Brad Tavares. Now, Brad Tavares has ran into some killers his last couple of fights. The last one, Edmund Shabazi, and oh my goodness, UFC 244, Masvidal Diaz got knocked out by a head kick 2 minutes into the first round. Yikes. And then before that, he did last 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, but this is Israel Adesanya before he won the big run. At this time, Adesanya was, he just fought Marvin Vettori. Then he got the main event spot against Brad Tavares. It went all 5 rounds, but it was 50-43, 50-44, just a dominant effort by Israel Adesanya in that Tavares fight. Before that, though, Tavares won a pretty big winning streak. Got wins over guys such as Thialis Leites and Christoph Joko. So 2 big wins there. Gotten a couple wins before that too. But he did lose to Robert Whittaker, and this has always been the problem with Brad Tavares. He beat some of these guys who are in the number 20 to maybe 13 range, but once he gets into the top 12 of the middleweight division, he starts losing these fights. So again, he has big wins over guys such as Joko, Leites, and Nate Marquardt, right? But he has losses to Yoel Romero, Tim Boetsch, okay, former top 15 guy, Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya, Edmund Shabazi, and that's always been the problem with Brad Tavares. Now, Tavares' big issue though has been if he's fighting a guy who's a better striker than him, he's gonna lose the fight. Prime example, Robert Whittaker, Shabazi, and Adesanya got outstruck in all 3 of those fights pretty easily. Same with the Yoel Romero fight. Tim Boetsch, he got knocked out in that one as well. That has always been the problem with Brad Tavares. He doesn't have to worry about this one in this fight because he's not going to get knocked out by Antonio Carlos Jr. on the feet. Antonio Carlos Jr.'s game plan in this one is very simple. Drag the fight to the ground. And Tavares' game plan is simple as well. Keep it standing and win the fight that way. So it's simple. Do you think Tavares is going to keep this one standing, or do you think Antonio Carlos Jr. can get this one to the ground? I think Antonio Carlos Jr. is a better grappler, obviously, than Tavares. I think he's going to be able to drag this one down. I think Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to get the job done here. If you look in the past, man, when Antonio Carlos Jr. does face off against pretty good strikers, we'll put Marvin Vettori there. Took him to the ground, finished him on the ground. Also, we've got Tim Boetsch. Tim Boetsch got him on the ground, finished him down there. Jack Marshman. I mean, he faces these pretty solid strikers. He gets them down to the ground and finishes them. And I think that's what he's going to do to Brad Tavares. Now, Brad Tavares, again, we've said it. Usually how he loses is he fights really good strikers and he gets outstruck. Because Tavares is a pretty good striker himself, but the guys, again, he's lost to, they're good strikers. Romero, Whitaker, Adesanya, Shabazian. Antonio Carlos Jr. is not going to outstrike Brad Tavares in this fight, but what he will do, he will outgrapple him, and I think Antonio Carlos Jr. is going to get this fight to the ground. I think he's going to submit Brad Tavares, so get Antonio Carlos Jr. back to his winning ways. So next up at lightweight, we have got Arman Tsarukyan taking on Nasrat Haqparast. Let's start here with Nasrat. So his last fight in the UFC was a win over Alexander Munoz. That was on Lewis and Oleinik. He did win that one by unanimous decision, and before that, he fought in UFC 246. He got knocked out by Drew Dober in, about a minute on the undercard for Connor and Cowboy. And before that, for Nasrat, went a pretty big winning streak, beat guys such as Mark DeCasey and Joaquim Silva, and then he started in the UFC with a loss to Marcin Held. That was on Cerrone and Till over in Poland. And then, of course, Nasrat Haqparast did come from everyone's favorite MMA promotion. It is, of course, We Love MMA over in Germany. Now, Nasrat Haqparast, a very good striker. He's only been knocked out once in his career, and that was to Drew Dober, but Drew Dober is a top 10, top 15 fighter in the weight class. So Haqparast, again, that loss to Drew Dober does leave, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a negative stain at all on his record. It is Drew Dober, but still he did lose in 1 minute, and then his first fight in the UFC was 2017, so not much you can put into that one. Before, though, the Dober fight, a big win over Joaquim Silva. That was a knockout. That was about 30 seconds into the second round. That was in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. That was on Covington and Lawler over there. And then currently for Nasrat Haqparast, he has a record of 12 wins and 3 losses. So yeah, that's Nasrat Haqparast. All around, man, a really good striker. Once he hits the mat, really hasn't been there much. His first UFC fight was a submission loss. It was on We Love MMA again in 2012. That was his first fight ever in MMA. So, again, Nasrat Haqparast, the key to winning this fight, keep it on the feet, but he takes on a really good fighter in Arman Tsarukyan. And Tsarukyan, man, has been on a roll as of late. I mean, his only loss ever in the last 6 years was to Islam Makhachev, and that was his first fight in the UFC. It wasn't over Oleinik over in St. Petersburg, Russia. That did win fight of the night, though. His last 2 fights been pretty good. I mean, it was a unanimous decision win over Davy Ramos, just dominated him over in Abu Dhabi, and the Oliver Abian Mercier fight, another dominant victory over in Edmonton on Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar. And that's really the UFC run for Arman Tsarukyan. Only 3 fights so far, but still, the last 2 have been very good. And the Islam Makhachev fight, a very good fight against a very good fighter in Islam Makhachev. But overall, Arman Tsarukyan, a very good striker, but maybe an even better grappler. He's really good on the ground, and yes, he has a lot of power as well, but the grappling for Tsarukyan could be the key in this fight, because Nasrat Haqparast, we know he's a good striker, and if Tsarukyan stands there with Nasrat Haqparast, the fight could honestly go either way. Both guys have a lot of power, and both guys can end a fight with just 1 punch. But now, I think if Arman Tsarukyan, and this is the game plan I think he probably will have, it will probably be to wrestle Nasrat Haqparast, at least for some of the fight, and see what Nasrat Haqparast does have on the ground, because we have seen him on the ground some. Of course, he is mini Kelvin Gastelum, but still. I think Tsarukyan, I think the main advantage for him is going to be in the grappling department. We've seen him before get submission wins, and now it has been wins over in Russian independent promotions. He hasn't gotten a submission win since 2017, so I don't necessarily think he's going to win by submission, but I think we're going to see a pretty entertaining fight. Both these guys are going to throw in this fight. Both these guys are going to be looking for the knockout, but I think if Tsarukyan's really going to have the upper hand, it's going to be via the grappling, and I think that's what he's going to do. So I think Arman Tsarukyan is going to control the fight on the ground. I think he's going to win his shot. He's going to pick his battles on the feet as well. And now, Nasrat Haqparast is going to have his spots on the feet too, but I think Tsarukyan is just going to be a little bit too much all around. He's a more well-balanced fighter, and I'm going to go with the Arman Tsarukyan decision win in this fight. Next up at strawweight, we have got Amanda Ribas taking on Marina Rodriguez. A really good fight between two of, I guess we can say, the elite at strawweight, considering the top of this division is kind of just stuck right now. Got Amanda Ribas, who is number 14 currently, and Marina Rodriguez, I do believe, is number 6. So, it's a big opportunity here for Amanda Ribas, and Amanda Ribas, I do believe, is one of the bigger favorites on this entire card. I think another big favorite, of course, is Conor McGregor, but yeah, she is a really big favorite on this card. For a good reason. We'll start with Amanda Ribas here. I mean, her current run right now in the UFC has been incredible. I mean, the wins over Emily Whitmire, Mackenzie Dern, Randa Marcos, and Paige Van Zandt have all been pretty dominant efforts. I mean, we really haven't seen Mackenzie Dern get dominated all around in a fight like she did against Amanda Ribas. And the Paige Van Zandt fight, well, Paige Van Zandt is now a bare knuckle fighter, and that fight's going to happen in, get this, Knuckle Mania is what they're calling it in February. I just don't know what to expect in that Paige Van Zandt fight. I don't know. If you want to see me do a separate video about Paige Van Zandt bare knuckle fighting fight, I don't know. Maybe. If you want to see it, I don't know. But, Amanda Ribas beat up Paige Van Zandt in that fight. It was 2 minutes long. Ribas got to the ground, got the armbar, fight was over. And that was at flyweight, but still, Paige Van Zandt did not stand a chance in that fight. She was like a plus 800 underdog in that one, and Ribas just beat her up in that fight. Same thing in the Randa Marcos fight. Mackenzie Dern, definitely a harder fight, but still, she got the job done there. Her only loss is to Polyana Viana. That was in Jungle Fight over in 2015. Viana, of course, another UFC fighter, just got her first win, or second win, in the promotion with the win over Emily Whitmire in August. But, yeah, Ribas did lose that fight, but again, it's a long time ago. It was 5 years ago, and Ribas looked very good. I mean, there's not much I can say other than she's really good on the feet, and she's even better on the ground. She's a really good all-around fighter, but she takes on a fighter in Marina Rodriguez. If she won her last fight against Carla Esparza, she'd be fighting for a title right now. So let's talk about Marina Rodriguez. And yeah, so on that Marina Rodriguez-Carla Esparza fight, that was on Whitaker Till over in Abu Dhabi. I thought Carla Esparza won the fight. A lot of people thought Marina Rodriguez won the fight. It could have gone either way. So Esparza won by split decision, and I honestly thought it was a pretty decisive win for Carla Esparza, 2-1. But hey, a lot of people thought Rodriguez won. It's usually the case in a lot of Carla Esparza fights. Go back to the Alexa Grasso fight, and even the Claudia Gadelha fight, which Esparza lost. She gets into a lot of close decisions. But it's looking like now Carla Esparza will be fighting Zhang Weili for the title, which is interesting. But she probably will be fighting for the title. Marina Rodriguez with the win over Carla Esparza, yeah, she'd be in this spot too. She'd be fighting Zhang Weili. Unfortunately, she is not, and now she's got to fight the number 14 ranked fighter who has a lot of hype behind her. But what does Rodriguez do very well? She's a very good striker. On the ground, a little bit shaky. We saw Carla Esparza dominate her on the ground, but that's kind of what Carla Esparza does to everyone, except for Tatiana Suarez. Yikes. And Esparza's getting a title shot. Yeah. But Rodriguez did lose that fight, but if you go back to the Cynthia Calvillo fight, it was a draw, but I think a lot of people thought Marina Rodriguez won that fight, and Calvillo missed weight by like 6 pounds in that fight anyway. But Rodriguez did get a draw in that one. Before that, beat Jessica Aguilar, Tisha Torres, had a draw with Randa Marcos, another fight a lot of people thought she won. So Rodriguez has had her fair share of really bad judging. Some of them, again, not bad at all, but hasn't gotten a finish yet in the UFC that we saw her, of course, get in Brazil. And now I know the competition changes once you get to the UFC, but she did win in the Contender Series by TKO. But again, it hasn't gotten a finish yet in the UFC. It's a tough fight to call this one with Rodriguez and Ribas, because I know a lot of people are picking Amanda Ribas because they've seen her before on the big shows. Of course, I think the Paige Van Zandt one will probably stick out because you get people. It's as weird as it seems. You get the casual viewing audience for Paige Van Zandt for one reason or the other. You do get that. You do get that audience, and a lot of people saw Amanda Ribas beat up Paige Van Zandt. And that's why a lot of people are riding Amanda Ribas in this fight to beat Marina Rodriguez. And honestly, I don't think you should be counting out Marina Rodriguez in this fight. Now, I'm picking Amanda Ribas, but I think this is going to be a very close fight. I could really see this one going either way. I don't think we get a finish in this one. Now, do I think Amanda Ribas' grappling is a lot better than Marina Rodriguez? Yes, and I think that's what she's going to do in this fight. I think she's going to really take the Carla Esparza game plan that she had against Marina Rodriguez and apply it to her own. I think Ribas is going to probably shoot very early in this fight. Now, if she stands with Marina Rodriguez, this fight could definitely go either way. Both of them are pretty good strikers. I would give the advantage, though, on the feet to Marina Rodriguez. She's a pretty good volume striker, and she can really outpace fighters on the feet. But when it gets on the ground, Amanda Ribas, I think, can really dominate. And yes, Carla Esparza is a tremendous wrestler, and is Amanda Ribas on the same level as Carla Esparza is on the ground? Or wrestling? No, but on the ground and with control, and jiu-jitsu, maybe Amanda Ribas is better than Carla Esparza. So I think Amanda Ribas gets this fight on the ground. She controls the fight on the ground, and I think everything points to Amanda Ribas decision win in this one. I don't think she's going to go out there and just submit Marina Rodriguez like she did Paige Van Zandt in 2 minutes. But I do think she's going to do enough on the ground and barely scrape out another decision win. It's going to be one of those classic, really close Marina Rodriguez decisions, but I think Amanda Ribas is going to get the job done, and hey, she's going to be at the elite tier of the 115 weight class. She might even be top 5 after this fight. It is crazy, but we're going with Amanda Ribas to get the win. Really good fight here. Ottman Azaitar and Matt Frevola. Let's start with Frevola in this one. So Matt Frevola, last fight, beat Luis Pena by split decision on Joanna and Watterson in Tampa, Florida. He was not supposed to win that fight. He really wasn't. That was set up for a Luis Pena victory, and Matt Frevola got the job done barely by split decision. Again, not set up for, that was not set up for Frevola to win that fight. That was supposed to be a Luis Pena showcase fight, and Frevola got the job done. That was in October 2019. I mean, we haven't seen Kron Gracie since then, and we're finally getting Matt Frevola back. Before that, he beat Jalen Turner on UFC 236, Holloway Poirier 2, and it was another fight that I don't think he's supposed to win either. I think the UFC's kind of setting him up to lose that fight again, but he beat Jalen Turner. And before that, the draw with Orlando Venata, close fight, UFC 230, Cormier Lewis. And before that, he lost to Polo Reyes on Jeremy Stevens, and Doohoo Choi over in St. Louis, Missouri. Got knocked out in about a minute. And then before that, came to the UFC by winning on the Contender Series. Now, Matt Frevola is in this spot because, hey, he's 8-1-1. He's a very good fighter, but it's a tough fight, man. Ottman Azaitar is good, but how does Frevola win this fight? Well, he takes it to the ground. If you can take Ottman Azaitar to the ground, Azaitar, yes, he's been solid on the ground in the past, but we know his striking is very good, and if Frevola can get this one on the ground and test Azaitar's ground game that no one really has yet. I mean, I know he's been on the ground before, but Frivola's ground game is better than anyone else's than Ottman Azaitar has fought before. If he can get this one on the ground and control him on the ground, he's gonna win the fight. It's a tough challenge though, because we're not talking about a guy who's just terrible on the ground, because Azaitar is not bad either. He's got really good takedown defense, and he has some submission wins in the past, given they're in the Netherlands regional promotions in 2015, but still, it's not like he's some scrub on the ground. So, Frevola, again, record of 8-1-1, currently 2-1-1 in the UFC. Hey man, only 30 years old, of course, training out of Serra-Longo in New York. So that's Matt Frevola. Let's talk about his opponent here, Ottman Azaitar. Now, it feels like an Ottman Azaitar showcase fight, doesn't it? It's on the main card of a Conor McGregor card. They usually do this to boost up guys or contenders who could potentially be contenders. And it kind of feels like it, but Matt Frevola has stopped the show before, and he can definitely do it again. But for Ottman Azaitar, I thought really highly of this guy for a while. I mean, the Kama Worthy fight, tremendous knockout finish. A minute into the fight, Watterson Hill TKO of Kama Worthy, who just got off of beating Luis Pena and Devontae Smith. 2 fights that Kama Worthy wasn't supposed to win either. That was a big win for Ottman Azaitar. And before that, his first fight in the UFC, another KO finish, knockout of the night, UFC 242. It was on Khabib and Poirier, knocked the guy out in the first round. Azaitar is undefeated, currently 13-0, and he is an excellent striker. There's no other way to go about it. The dude is a tremendous striker, and all of his, his last 6 wins, all by TKO, and then only one of them got out the first round. He is a monster in there. And how does Frevola win the fight? Takes the fight down, gets him in the ground. I don't think it's going to happen. Ottman Azaitar is so quick too, and he rushes in the very beginning of the fight. He will throw a lot at the very beginning of the fight, and I think that's what's going to happen. We saw it in the Kama Worthy fight. He threw a lot in that first 90 seconds. He picks his spots too at the same time though. He's patient, but he throws a lot at the same time. It's kind of tough, but he does. It's hard to explain, but he does. And I think Azaitar is going to win this one. I think he's going to beat Matt Frevola. He's going to get the job done. He's going to knock him out. I'm going to say first round, but don't count out Matt Frevola in this fight. Do not. Because Frevola has stopped the show before in the Luis Pena fight, a fight he was not supposed to win. He can definitely do it again, but I don't think it's going to happen with everything we've seen so far out of Azaitar. I think he remains undefeated and picks up another KO win in the first round. All right, so why this is on pay-per-view, I don't know. They're going to make us pay. What is the pay-per-view price now? Is it $75? Is it $75 for a pay-per-view? And now Dana White is gonna bring in the FBI to every single person on this planet who's an illegal stream. I don't know, that dude that owns crack streams, I would be careful, man. Dana White is on a mission. He is on a damn mission to stop the illegal streams. Who knows what happens, but the UFC is charging $75 for us to watch Jessica Eye and Joanne Calderwood. Nothing against the fighters, but come on. Jessica Eye, we'll start with her. Her last fight, Cynthia Calvillo. I picked Jessica Eye to win that. Now, it was a main event. It was a 5-round fight. I thought Jessica Eye was going to win. Cynthia Calvillo just dominated her wrestling. It wasn't a fight. Well, it was a fight, but still. Just a pure dominant fight on the ground for Cynthia Calvillo, and then she went and lost to Katlyn Chookagian in her last fight. Pretty unfortunate. The Viviane Araujo fight, Araujo is fighting on Wednesday, and it was a good one for Jessica Eye. She dominated her on the feet. It was a pretty good performance for Eye. I would probably say her most impressive in her career, because yes, she did beat Katlyn Chookagian, but it was a split decision win. It was a very close fight. The Araujo fight, we knew that Jessica Eye won the fight after the fight was over. The Valentina Shevchenko fight, what do you want me to say? Everyone's done that to Valentina Shevchenko has done that to everyone. Head kick KO, now she hasn't KO'd everyone like that, but still, dominant performance by Valentina. Knocked her out in the second round. And yeah, the Jessica Eye title run, I mean, she beat Jessica Rose Clark and Katlyn Chookagian to get a title shot. Will she ever get a title shot again? I doubt it, but I mean, I've been fighting the UFC for a damn long time. Since October 2013, first fight was on UFC 166, Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos, the trilogy fight, the third fight. And she did beat Sarah Kaufman in that one, but then it got overturned because I tested positive for a substance that was not steroids. You can probably guess what it is. It's not performance-enhancing drugs. It is the other drug that Stephen A. Smith likes to quote a lot. And then she lost to Alexis Davis after that, beat Leslie Smith, cut Leslie Smith's ear wide open. That was wild. But then she won a big losing streak. The Miesha Tate fight got dominated there. Same with Juliana Pena, same with Sarah McMann. Bethe Correia, some would say she probably won that fight, but still they gave the decision to Correia. Then she won a 3-fight winning streak to get the title shot, and we talked about that one before. Jessica Eye, though, the Calvillo fight was just kind of tough because she was probably going to win that fight. Again, the problem with Jessica Eye is, can she make weight? She hasn't made weight her last 2 fights. She missed weight in both of them. Can she make 126? I mean, we've seen in the past she's made 125 before. Who knows? Yeah, let's talk about her opponent, though, Jojo Calderwood. Now, Jojo should have had the last title shot. She ended up fighting Jennifer Maia, took that fight because they needed someone to save the card, or the co-main event, and she lost. She got subbed in the first round by Jennifer Maia. Maia ended up getting the title shot. Now, would have Joanne beat Valentina Shevchenko? No, but still, she would have got the title shot and that big chunk of money. Never happened. How Joanne was going to get the title shot? Well, she beat Andrea Lee, and that was her only win. Going into that title run, she did lose to Katlyn Chookagian. Before that, beat Ariane Lipski, which is a pretty big win because Lipski is a monster on the ground. And then before that, beat Faria too. It's just Joanne Calderwood has been shaky at 125 to say the least. The Cynthia Calvillo loss was at 115. Jessica Andrade was at 115 as well. So if you want to look at her 125 run, she is currently 3-2 there. And yes, she was going to be 3-1 going into the title fight. Again, it never happened. The Jennifer Maia fight really showed that Joanne Calderwood isn't great on the ground. I mean, we've known that, though. She's been subbed multiple times on the ground. I mean, the Jessica Andrade fight, she was subbed, and then the Marina Rose fight, too. And then she did get subbed by Rose Namajunas on the Ultimate Fighter, but it's Rose Namajunas. But now, can Jessica Eye take this fight to the ground? Does Jessica Eye have the submission skills of a Jennifer Maia? No, not at all. So it's going to be a stand-up fight, because Joanne Calderwood, I mean, I guess we can call her a brawler. She kind of is. Same with Jessica Eye, though. Kind of sits back and waits. Kind of a counter puncher. Not really, though. Throws some volume. It's a tough fight to call because both these fighters are going to stand probably. They're not going to throw a lot. I would say it's a toss-up fight. I honestly think it's a toss-up fight. I'm going to take Joanne Calderwood just because of Jessica Eye. Just because of her last performance against Calvillo. It was not great, and you always got to think about Jessica Eye potentially missing weight again. The weight has not been a problem for Calderwood ever since she went up to 125. I think Joanne Calderwood probably just be the aggressor in this one. I think she's probably going to push the pace. I think that's as simple as I can get it here. I think she's going to just push the pace in this fight, force Jessica Eye to throw a lot, which isn't going to go into Jessica Eye's favor. And I think Joanne Calderwood will win a decision victory. Well, here we go. One of the better fights in the card, if not the best fight other than the main event. Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. The much anticipated debut of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler, the UFC Hasn't had a fight yet, but they have been pushing Michael Chandler to the moon. They have. I mean, dude was going to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov or Justin Gaethje if one of them fell out in that fight in, when was it? September? Yeah, he was the backup fighter for that fight. I mean, Michael Chandler coming from Bellator, last win, Benson Henderson, a pretty good win against Benson Henderson. Knocked him out in the first round on Bellator 243. It was a 5-round main event, but he got the job done in one. Benson Henderson since, yeah, I mean, he did lose to Jason Jackson. I mean, it's a good one for Jason Jackson. Just controlled Benson Henderson that entire fight, but wasn't a really good fight for Henderson at all. Jason Jackson is the future of the 170 division over there in Bellator. So what do we know about Michael Chandler? One, he's got a lot of power. And two, he is a really good wrestler. If you want to compare him to one of the fighters on the UFC roster, I would say, I wouldn't say it's an exact replicate of a guy that I'm thinking of, but he's kind of like Josh Emmett. And not entirely, because Josh Emmett has a lot of damn power, but Michael Chandler's kind of that way. Chandler's a very good wrestler like Josh Emmett is, but if he stays on the feet, he's not a volume guy, but if he throws a big haymaker, he's going to put guys down. Michael Chandler, a former wrestler, though, I believe, where did he go? He was a Big 12 wrestler. He was wrestling out of the University of Missouri. And again, Michael Chandler, former Strikeforce guy as well. He's fought everywhere but the UFC. He's, what, a 3-time Bellator lightweight champion. He's beat Pitbull before for the title. Again, he did lose to Pitbull recently in 2019 when he lost the title again, but he did beat Pitbull for the title the first time when he fought Patricio, or the second time, because he fought Pitbull 3 times. But yeah, he's lost to Will Brooks twice, but that was 2014. It's a long time ago. He did fight Eddie Alvarez, lost a split decision fight there for the Bellator Lightweight Championship in 2013. Chandler's just been like the Bellator guy for the longest time, and it's gonna be kind of weird seeing him in the octagon, the UFC octagon, but again, if there was ever a time for Chandler to go to the UFC, it was now. He's 34 years old. This is like the last time that he's gonna get. It's the last time he's gonna get a big contract with one of these promotions. And if he beats Dan Hooker, I mean, we'll be seeing either Michael Chandler fight. Who knows? I mean, again, the whole thing, you gotta impress Khabib. Now, will Michael Chandler fight Khabib for Khabib's 30th and last fight? No, it's not happening. But Chandler can put himself in a very good position here. If he can win this fight, hell, he might be fighting a Justin Gaethje, a Charles Oliveira, a Tony Ferguson, one of these guys, Rafael dos Anjos. I think Dos Anjos might be a little bit of a step back compared to Dan Hooker in both their points of their career right now, but it's a big opportunity for Michael Chandler. It is a Bellator guy coming into the UFC. But man, is Dan Hooker tough to beat. And don't forget, though, real quick, Michael Chandler is not here for a long time. He is here for a good time. But man, Dan Hooker, that last fight against Dustin Poirier. Now, I thought Dustin Poirier won the fight, but it was close. Dan Hooker had his moments in that one, man. He really did. Lost that one by unanimous decision. Now, I thought he lost the Paul Felder fight, if I'm being honest with you, but they did give him the decision win over in New Zealand. That was in February of 2020. That was last year. Seems like it was a long damn time ago. Before that, Dan Hooker beat Ali Quinta. Dominant performance for Dan Hooker. That was the fight after he won. He went on the microphone and said, "Dustin Poirier, meet me in New Zealand, and I'm gonna end you." I'm not gonna do a New Zealand accent. I'm not even going to try. Lost to Dustin Poirier, but still put up a very good performance in that fight. Before that, beat James Vick. James Vick's chin is gone. By the way, is James Vick fighting soon? I feel like he is, right? He's supposed to fight on January 30th. At an ex-MMA fight. Okay, good for James Vick. Hopefully he wins that one. I don't know. The Texecutioner. Hopefully he doesn't call his opponent a Homer Simpson anymore. Dan Hooker's last loss, or not including the Dustin Poirier fight. His last loss was Edson Barbosa. Now, Edson Barbosa fought a very technical and very good fight in that one. That was the last ever UFC on Fox card. Lee Iaquinta 2 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dan Hooker got dominated the body in that fight. I mean, Edson Barbosa straight kicks the body, punches the body. Now, can Michael Chandler do that? Yes, but he doesn't have the kicks as Edson Barbosa does. And Dan Hooker has evolved as a fighter since then. The Vick, Iaquinta, and Felder wins were big for him. And even the Dustin Poirier fight, in a loss, it showed that Dan Hooker is a top 5 fighter in the 155-pound weight division. He does have a win against Gilbert Burns. The broadcast crew is going to mention that. UFC 226, Cormier Miocic won. Still, that is a long time ago. Gilbert Burns was a different fighter at 155 compared to what he is now at 170. And yeah, Dan Hooker's been fighting the UFC since June of 2014. The UFC record might be a little bit salty, but I mean, he had some losses very early on in his career when he was fighting at featherweight. Lightweight Dan Hooker has been a different story. Again, his only 2 losses at lightweight were to Edson Barbosa and Dustin Poirier. So that's just saying something right there. How does Dan Hooker win the fight? Keeps the fight standing. But you cannot underestimate and underrate the grappling of Dan Hooker as well. He is not a bad submission guy as well. He caught Mark DeCasey in a really nice guillotine. UFC 219, it was in the 3rd round on Cyborg and home. Caught him in a really nice guillotine and put away Mark DeCasey in their fight. Again, it was a long time ago, but you can't just think Michael Chandler's going to come into this fight and Chandler's just going to constantly put the pressure on him and constantly wrestle him. If he does, Hooker is not bad off his back. It's such a tough fight to call because if it stays standing, we know Hooker can probably put it on him with his volume, but it really, honestly, only takes one from Michael Chandler. And I know you could say, well, recency bias of the Benson Henderson fight, and you could say maybe Benson Henderson's kind of past his peak. Again, he's 37 years old. He has been knocked out a couple times now in his career, but it's only the 2nd time that Henderson did get knocked out. The other one before that was the Rafael dos Anjos fight. So you can't really say Henderson's too washed up, or at least his chin's gone. So we know Michael Chandler has a lot of power. And I know a lot of people will say, well, the fighting in Bellator is much different than the UFC. Of course it is. But Chandler's been fighting the top guys at Bellator for a long time. Eddie Alvarez, Will Brooks, of course Henderson, and Pitbull. Those are the top guys that Bellator has to offer. And those guys can be in the top 10 in their primes in the UFC as well. All right. As a prediction in this one, I'm going Michael Chandler. Oh no, I'm doing it. I'm going Michael Chandler. I think the wrestling is not going to be the key in this one. It is going to be that counter hook that Chandler throws. It is going to be the power that Chandler does possess for a 155 pounder. Now, does Dan Hooker have the advantage, like a pure striking advantage? Yes, he does, but Chandler has so much power in his hands, man. I think Hooker is going to start off very aggressive to start this fight off. Chandler's going to catch him with a hook. And then Hooker's going to back away for a little bit because he's going to see the power that Chandler does possess. I think Michael Chandler's going to take this fight to the ground. I think he's going to hold him on the ground. I think Michael Chandler is going to barely get a decision win. I think this is going to be a very close fight. Hell, I'll even say it's going to be a split decision fight. I think it's going to be a razor-thin decision fight here in this one. I think Chandler's wrestling is going to be a big factor in this one, but I think if Chandler can at least pose a little bit of a threat on the feet for Dan Hooker, to the point where Dan Hooker does not want to stand there and just throw everything at Michael Chandler like what he did in the Dustin Poirier fight and what he did in the Paul Felder fight. If he can feel a little bit of that Michael Chandler power, and if he thinks that's a lot that could put him down, I think he's going to back away a little bit. I think that's going to make this fight a lot easier for Michael Chandler. So I think Michael Chandler is going to push the pressure after the first round. I think the first round would probably be a Dan Hooker round. And I think the 2nd and 3rd is where Michael Chandler can win this one. We know Michael Chandler's got a lot of cardio, but man, does Dan Hooker have a lot of cardio as well. Both these guys are cardio freaks. This is a fight that should be 5 rounds. And if I'm being honest, I would rather see this one as a 5-round fight. I know this has been discussed in the past, that main event or that pay-per-view co-main events should be 5 rounds if they're not title fights. I agree with that. I know that was being discussed for Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal next month. Obviously, that fight's not happening. I don't know if that fight's ever going to happen. I doubt it. If you want my opinion on that one, I think Colby's fighting the winner of Gilbert Burns and Kamaru, and I think Wonder Boy's fighting Masvidal, but who knows? Yeah, so I think this fight should be 5 rounds. It is not, and I know this could definitely favor Dan Hooker, because Hooker, he fights well in a 5-round fight, and he throws a lot of shots in a 5-round fight. So I just imagine what he can do. This new Dan Hooker could do in a 3-round fight. I get it. But I think Michael Chandler, the wrestling is going to be a little bit too much. But again, the big key, if he can land a hook early and put a little bit of power into that one and back up Dan Hooker, I think he's going to get the win. Again, it is not my most confident pick at all. This is probably my least confident pick on the entire card. So don't think I'm a big Bellator guy. I'm a big Michael Chandler guy. I am not. I just think Chandler's going to have a slight advantage, and I think he's going to barely scrape out a 2-rounds-to-1 decision win. Again, I don't think all the judges are going to agree on this one. I say he barely scrapes it out. We're gonna go with the split decision victory. I've never called a split decision victory, but I think he's going to get the job done. So, folks, next up here on this card, we've got Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. I already talked about this fight on my video yesterday, so we're going to play that. And if you've already seen it, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Greedo MMA as well. And enjoy the Conor versus Dustin Poirier prediction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another UFC preview and predictions, but in this video we will just be doing Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, of course the main event of UFC 257. The full card preview and predictions will either come out later today or tomorrow, so just be on the lookout for that. But for now, let's talk about Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Oh my goodness, what a fight we have this Saturday night. It is the rematch of their first fight over on UFC 178. This would be Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Chris Carriasso for the 125-pound title. Demetrius Johnson did win the main event, but that doesn't matter. And folks, if you haven't done it yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below for more UFC here on the channel. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier was on that main card, and of course Conor got the job done a minute and 45 seconds into that first round. So that was their first meeting. Of course, that was in 2014. We are now 7 years later, and they will finally meet, and this time at 155 pounds. Of course, the first fight was at 145 pounds. I mean, for Dustin Poirier, he's only lost twice since that Conor fight. Once to Evloev Nurmagomedov, the other one, it was a knockout loss to Michael Johnson. And then for Conor McGregor, he's only lost twice as well since that first Poirier fight. Obviously, the first fight against Nate Diaz, and then, of course, to the champion in Evloev Nurmagomedov. Now, how does each fighter get the win in this fight? Well, I mean, don't listen to ESPN or like Max Kellerman. They'll tell you Dustin Poirier is a jiu-jitsu guy. And yes, Dustin Poirier's jiu-jitsu is very good, but most likely this fight will stay on the feet. I don't anticipate it to go to the ground. Yes, it could, and I think Dustin Poirier will probably initiate the grappling if it does happen, but you can't forget, people call Conor McGregor's wrestling very bad and his grappling very bad. And yes, he did get dominated on the ground against Evloev Nurmagomedov. And yes, in the Nate Diaz fight, in the second round, he gassed out. He went for a terrible takedown. No effort in that takedown. Nate Diaz spun around, got back, and put him out with a rear naked choke. And yeah, a lot of people will say that Conor McGregor grappling is not good. And also with that Joe Duffy fight back in 2010, again, that's what, 11 years ago now, but don't underrate the grappling Conor McGregor. And I think in this fight, yeah, you'd probably have to give the advantage to Dustin Poirier in the grappling aspect in this fight. I mean, we've seen Poirier do well on the ground against guys such as Dan Hooker, and we've seen it before. He is very good on the ground. I mean, the first Max Holloway fight, right? Won that fight on the ground, as well as a lot of different fights where, the Anthony Pettis fight too, got him on the ground, finished the fight. So yeah, if this fight does take place on the ground, or if it does get on the ground, I think it will be Poirier trying to get this one on the ground. Definitely, I think if Conor puts him into some danger early in the fight, like what Conor kind of did to Cowboy Cerrone, pressured him the first 40 seconds. I think if Poirier gets rocked, he'll probably try to go down to the ground. But again, I don't anticipate it happening. So I think we'll probably see a stand-up fight for the most part here, and it just depends. We know Conor McGregor's boxing is probably the best in the weight class. I mean, I think you can make the case for Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje to be the two other really good boxers in the weight class, but I would think just pure power-wise, you got to give it to Conor McGregor. Dustin Poirier, though, has got amazing power as well, but I mean, not on the level of Conor. We've seen Dustin Poirier knock out some of the best lightweights on the planet. I mean, we got Eddie Alvarez put him down in the second round. The Justin Gaethje fight in Glendale, Arizona was one of the better fights I've seen in my lifetime, and Dustin Poirier won that fight in the fourth round. It was a really good fight. I mean, like most Justin Gaethje fights, pre-focused Justin Gaethje, of course, after this Dustin Poirier fight. But yeah, Poirier can put guys down. He does. He has knockout power as well, but once more, you got to give the power advantage to McGregor. So yeah, let's talk about Dustin Poirier, though, in full, because Dustin Poirier, the last fight against Dan Hooker, one of the better fights, of course, in 2020. We saw a lot of grappling in that fight from Poirier. We saw him do really well in the stand-up as well. It was just an all-around very good fight and a really impressive performance against Dan Hooker, who is on this undercard. The Evloev Nurmagomedov fight, I mean, it's just really tough to just say with the Khabib fight, because Khabib did the same thing to Conor, to Dustin Poirier, to Justin Gaethje. And yes, Conor and Gaethje did win rounds against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Dustin Poirier did not. Poirier had a good chance, man. In, I believe it was the second round, right? He caught him in the guillotine, or was it the third round? It was either the second or third round. Poirier caught him with the guillotine. And it looked like he had a shot. Khabib eventually got his head out of there. But really, that was Poirier's only, like, little hope in that fight. It was the guillotine. He really didn't. Other than that, Khabib really did dominate the fight. The Max Holloway fight was very good for Dustin Poirier, and considering what Max Holloway just did against Calvin Kattar, hell, that is an amazing performance to look back on. I mean, he beat up Max Holloway on the feet. I believe most judges, I think two judges had it 49-46, the other had 48-47, if I'm not mistaken on that. The Eddie Alvarez fight, pretty good fight for Dustin Poirier. Again, that was the rematch of their first fight over on UFC 211. That was Miocic and Dos Santos. But they had the rematch over in Calgary on a UFC on Fox card. And yeah, Poirier finished him in the second round, and all around, one of the better performances in his career. And same with the Justin Gaethje fight, you can say so, but Gaethje hit Poirier with some bombs in their fight, but Poirier, again, responded with the same. Just an absolute war. Go watch that fight if you have not yet. I believe the UFC posted that one as one of their free fights on the YouTube channel. Very good fight. Again, Gaethje throwing with reckless abandon, and Dustin Poirier just throwing as well. Both guys just not giving a damn, just throwing everything they got. And then again, Dustin Poirier finished that fight in the fourth round. The Anthony Pettis fight, again, got Pettis to the ground, locked up the body triangle, and put him away in the third round. That was another main event. That was a scheduled 5-round main event. It got finished in the third. The first Eddie Alvarez fight ended in the second round. Illegal knee to the head for Eddie Alvarez, so it was no contest. And then, we're going now back to 2017. I'll talk about the Jim Miller fight. Wasn't a great fight for Dustin Poirier. He did barely get the decision win. It was a majority decision for Dustin Poirier. Barely scraped out a win in that one. But, you got to consider, in 2017, Jim Miller was still one of the top fighters in the weight class. He was coming off a 3-fight winning streak. He beat Takanori Gomi, beat Joe Lazzone, beat Thiago Alves. And then he ran into Anthony Pettis, and he kind of went on that losing streak. He fought Trinaldo and then Dan Hooker. And then he's been iffy since. He beat Clay Guida, just lost to Vince Pichel recently. But at the time, that was a big win for Dustin Poirier because Jim Miller was a top 10 fighter. I believe it's maybe even top 7 at the time. It was a really big win for him, and then he got the Alvarez fight. Of course, Alvarez, former champion, and then that fight got called off, no contest, and then he went on the big winning streak, of course, to win the interim title against Max Holloway. And then, we can talk about Poirier's beginning of his UFC career. I'll bring up 2 fights. I'll bring up the Max Holloway fight from UFC 143, the first one. That was on Nick Diaz and Carlos Condit in February of 2012. Just gonna bring that one up because Max Holloway, again, just fought and looked really good. There's not much to say in that fight. Poirier got him to the ground, got full mount, transitioned to a triangle armbar. It's a really nice transition, too. Got him with that, finished the fight pretty early. And the other fight I want to talk about is the Chan Sung Jung fight. That was in Fairfax, Virginia, May of 2012 on UFC on Fuel TV. Yeah, we're going back. He fought Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, in the main event of that card, and he lost in the fourth round via Darce choke. But that was a tremendous fight, and Poirier hit Zombie with some bombs in that fight, and Zombie landed a lot on Poirier too. We've seen what the Korean Zombie has done to some of these 145-pounders. He's put away Renato Moicano. He's put away a lot of these guys with his Frankie Edgar as well with big shots. And Poirier stuck in there for 4 rounds. And again, this was a Chan Sung Jung who, after that fight, would go on to I do believe get a title shot, right? Yeah, he fought Jose Aldo right after. So you gotta imagine a Poirier winning that fight could potentially put him in the mix for a title shot. Again, it didn't happen. He ended up leaving 145 and heading up to 155. But that was the very beginning of his run. And you gotta think, that early in Poirier's career, he was getting a potential shot at the championship if he were to defeat the Korean Zombie. It was one of the fights of the year, of course, in 2012. So that is Dustin Poirier. The current record for Poirier, of course, 26 wins and 6 losses. A lot of knockouts in the record, of course, a lot of submissions as well. But again, I think this fight will stay on the feet. And yeah, for Poirier, a lot of people won't think he's probably going to finish this fight in the first round. I doubt it. I think the main way for Poirier to win this fight, you've got to get it past the first round, because we know that is Conor's, for the most part, that is Conor McGregor's best round. You can say in the second too, because we've seen how Conor's done in the second round. The Eddie Alvarez round in the second round, tremendous for Conor. And yeah, the third round against Habib Nurmagomedov was the first round that Habib ever lost in his career. I guess the Gleison Tibau fight, but we're not going to talk about that. It was really, for the most part, the first round Habib ever lost. So we can say but for the most part, Conor really good in the first round. We've seen it before. A lot of his finishes do come in either the first or the second. If you can get Conor past the third, and if he can get him in the championship rounds, we have not seen Conor in the fourth and fifth rounds. Of course, we did see him in the Habib fight, but he did lose in the fourth round. And the Nate Diaz fight, it was a welterweight fight, so I don't really like putting that fight when we're talking about this 155 fight. Yeah, Conor did fight well in that 5-round fight, but again, with Poirier, I think his best shot at winning this fight, you gotta drag it out in the championship rounds. And do I think Dustin can get a finish in this fight? I definitely think he can. Now, does it require him going to the ground? It might require Dustin going to the ground here, but I think honestly, if Poirier can overwhelm Conor with his volume in this fight, if he can get it to the 4th and 5th rounds, he can get a stoppage in this fight in the 4th or 5th, or if he's trying to win by decision, you just gotta steal 1 through 3. And I honestly think if Poirier can get it into the 4th and 5th, he can probably win both those rounds. And then again, if you get 1 through 3, if you get one of the rounds from 1 through 3, then he can win the fight. So a lot of multiple options for Dustin Poirier to win this fight. And then again, if Poirier decides to take this one to the ground, who knows? But again, I would not underrate that Conor McGregor grappling at all. All right, let's talk about the notorious Conor McGregor. And I know the line's really good on Conor McGregor right now. I mean, what? He's like a minus 300 favorite. I know a lot of people who don't usually watch sport MMA are going to take Conor McGregor just because he is Conor McGregor. But it is not an easy fight at all. Don't get me wrong. This is not an easy fight for Conor at all. The Dustin Poirier that we saw in the Dan Hooker fight can beat Conor McGregor. And yes, he left himself wide open to a Conor left hand. And I know that's a possibility. But I think Dustin's got a shot. But I think Conor's got a pretty damn good shot too. I mean, the Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight was probably the best Conor McGregor we have ever seen. Now, I would say the Eddie Alvarez fight, you could probably say it's up there because the Eddie Alvarez Conor was amazing as well. I mean, the beating Conor put on Eddie Alvarez, absolutely insane. The first round wasn't even a fight. I mean, what, he knocked him down like 3 times in that first round, and then the second round, yeah, just put him away. And you can't forget at the time, Eddie Alvarez was the guy. He just beat Rafael dos Anjos, who was the guy before Eddie Alvarez. He put him away in, what, 2 rounds? It wasn't even a competition. Eddie Alvarez is still fighting really well right now, and he's about to fight for a one championship over there in Asia. So again, you cannot. That fight is just still probably Conor's best performance other than the Cowboy fight. Because the Cowboy fight, 40-second knockout, and I know you can talk about how well Cowboy Cerrone recently has not been great. It's after he lost to Tony Ferguson. It's after he lost to Justin Gaethje. It's after, he beat Alec Quinton, but right, you can't. You can say that wasn't that great of a performance because Cowboy's kind of washed up, and I get it. But you can't forget the Tony Ferguson fight with Cowboy Cerrone. There's a lot of people thought he won the first round. There's a lot of people thought he won that round and that Tony won the second, and you could have been going that third round for Cowboy Cerrone. If he wins that third round, he's fighting for the title. But yeah, I mean, in all, I would probably say the Eddie Alvarez performance was way more impressive, but still, a very good performance for Conor in that fight. The shoulder strikes, we've never seen anyone really do that ever in an octagon, and then he caught him with the head kick. Just a dominant performance by Conor in that fight. And before that, for Conor, again, we got the Khabib fight, but Khabib has done the same thing to pretty much everyone, and we've seen the top guys in the weight class. I mean, usually the elite of the lightweight division, I usually think of Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje, and now I put Charles Oliveira in that category. But the top 3 guys, I would say, Khabib's dominated all of them. And Conor won a round against them. A lot of people thought Justin Gaethje could have won the first round. I think all the judges had Gaethje win the first round. I thought he did, but again, the second round, it was just over. And even Khabib's gone out and said, well, Gaethje was the toughest guy he ever fought. I mean, maybe striking potentially, but on the ground, I mean, it wasn't a fight. I mean, the big talking point going into that Gaethje-Khabib fight was, well, Justin Gaethje's wrestling. Hey, he wrestled in college. Very good wrestler, very underrated wrestler. He can keep this fight standing and he can knock Khabib out. Hey, I picked Gaethje to win the fight. Didn't go my way, but still. Conor fought an alright fight, man. He really did. The third round was, you gotta watch that third round. Very impressive for Conor. Really good win there. Not one round, but of course he did lose the fight. Eddie Alvarez, we talked about it. The Nate Diaz fights, okay. They happened because Rafael dos Anjos could not make UFC 196, so Nate Diaz won that fight, and then they did it again, same place in Vegas. I wasn't a fan of the 2 fights with Nate Diaz. I mean, obviously when they happened, I was excited, but like, with matchmaking, I thought they could have gone a different route, but it was all right. I mean, Conor did win the second fight, and eventually I think we probably will see a trilogy at some point in time. Maybe. I think we probably will. So yeah, those fights happened. Again, Conor ran out of gas in the first fight. In the second fight, well, I thought Conor was going to lose that fight. I'm going to keep it real, because it was the same exact fight that we saw, 4 or 5 months previously? The second fight with Nate Diaz, and hey, Conor fought a really good fight, didn't gas out in that fight, won it in 5, right? Won a decision. The Jose Aldo fight, what is there to talk about? It's a 13-second knockout win for Conor McGregor. Backed up, caught him with the big left. Again, one of the better knockouts in UFC history just because of the significance of that knockout. Put Jose Aldo out, ended the big Jose Aldo reign at featherweight. Again, Aldo would go back and regain the title, but then Max Holloway beat him. But still, just ended the Jose Aldo reign as champion, of course, from WEC into the UFC. Tremendous win for Conor McGregor. The Chad Mendes fight, now Mendes was coming in on short notice, but Conor did get the job done in the second round. The big build up to that fight, the big narrative of that fight was, well, all right, Chad Mendes, he's a really good wrestler. They did the press conference. It was a press conference, it was a phone call or whatever. Chad Mendes asked Conor McGregor, have you heard of wrestling? And Mendes just really couldn't do anything against Conor in that fight. Conor fought a very good fight. kept his distance in that fight, eventually put Mendes out in the second round. The team alpha male excuse to this day will be Chad Mendes did not get a full camp, and I get it. Mendes did not get a full camp in that fight, but I think even Mendes with a full camp, Conor probably would have beat him. The Dennis Seaver fight, it was just a mismatch. I'm gonna keep it real. If he was in Boston, Conor beat up Dennis Seaver in that fight. The first Dustin Poirier fight, we've talked about it. The Diego Brandao fight, another mismatch. It was the main event in Ireland. Really just a mismatch. Conor beat Brandao up. And the Max Holloway fight, not much we can say about that one. It was a long time ago. It was 8 years ago. Conor won the fight. Wasn't too impressive, but he did dominate Max Holloway in the fight. It was a very young Max Holloway too, just like the Max Holloway that fought Dustin Poirier. And then, yeah, that's basically the start of his UFC career. If you want to talk about the Joe Duffy fight, I don't know. I mean, it's 2010. Duffy beat him. Arm triangle. It's really nothing. 38 seconds. I believe Conor took that one on short notice, too, because he just fought the month before. There's not much you can put in the Joe Duffy fight. Again, it was 11 years ago. Conor is a different fighter. It was in Cage Warriors, but still, he's a different fighter. So, how does Conor win the fight? Well, I think Conor's best way to win this fight, first round knockout. I think that's probably the main way everyone thinks Conor's gonna win this fight. Conor in the Ariel Helwani interview said, though, he thinks this fight's going to be easy for him, but he does think it's going to be a war. Or actually, I think he wants it to be a war. Now, why? I mean, I guess because Conor wants to show that he can go 4 or 5 rounds. And again, that's what I'm critical of Conor right now. It's, can he go 4 or 5 rounds? Can he be dominant through 5 rounds of a fight? Do I think it will get there? Maybe. But again, Conor's best chance to win this fight versus second round. I think Conor's going to use kind of like the approach that he took in the Eddie Alvarez fight. I think he's going to come out swinging out the gates, and I think he's going to try to put the pressure on Dustin Poirier, like what I think Poirier might want to do to Conor. Again, Conor's going to be sitting back on his shots. He's going to be waiting for Poirier to throw too. It just depends on what Conor we are going to get. And Conor said in the past or recently that this is going to be a different Conor. We've never seen this Conor McGregor before, so we just don't know what to expect. I would assume we're going to get something like the Conor and the Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight, but just a little bit better. And of course, he's back at lightweight because the Cowboy fight was at welterweight. To this day, I don't know why that fight was at welterweight. Donald Cowboy Cerrone was the number 5 ranked lightweight at the time. I still don't get it, but hey, the UFC, who knows? And again, I think everyone pretty, for the most part, wanted Conor and Justin Gaethje on that card, but it is all right. Now, prediction time. It is very tough to pick a winner in this fight because I think a lot of people are overlooking Dustin Poirier, and I think honestly with the odds we got right now, I'm not sure on the odds. I'm sure I'll have the graphic on the screen right now, but I believe last time I checked, Poirier is about a plus 225. That's a pretty good line for Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, I mean, according to the rankings, he's the favorite in this fight, and I think Poirier will be out of the red corner in this fight. Not like it matters, but technically, according to the rankings, Dustin Poirier is the favorite. It's just a tough fight to call because Poirier's striking is severely, and I mean severely, underrated. And Conor McGregor's grappling, I would say it's underrated too, but it will be a stand-up fight. That's I can feel pretty confident in saying this is going to be a stand-up fight. 2 guys who know how to get knockouts. We've seen this fight before, but again, I would not put too much into that first fight. Hell, it was, how many years ago again? It was 7 years ago. My official prediction though in this fight, I think Conor McGregor gets Dustin Poirier again. I think he does. What Conor has said, he's made the adjustments, and he thinks he's going to be a better version of himself from the Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight. And he thinks that the current Conor that's standing right now could beat the Conor from the Cowboy fight and the Eddie Alvarez fight, and I believe him on that. I think Conor McGregor, I think his striking's gonna be better than before. I think if this has to come down to some grappling, I think Conor's grappling is gonna be better. Again, he stuffed some takedowns from Khabib, and yes, he did get taken down eventually by Nurmagomedov, but he did stuff some takedowns in that fight. Did kind of grab the shorts, but it's all right. He did stuff takedowns in that fight, and I don't think it's fair to say that Dustin Poirier, if this fight hits the mat, he's going to roll right over Conor on the ground. I don't think that's a fair assessment of the fight. And I also don't think it's a fair assessment, though, if Poirier stands with Conor, Conor's going to win no matter what. I think this fight's going to be tough for Conor. It's going to be a lot tougher than the Donald Cowboy Cerrone fight. I'm going to say it's going to be tougher than the Eddie Alvarez fight. I don't think this fight ends in the first round. I really don't think... I don't think it ends in the first round. I don't think it does. I think Conor wins this one in the third. I'm going to say an early third round knockout for Conor McGregor. I think he puts him away by TKO, I think he wins it by TKO in this fight. I don't think he wins in the second. I think the first round might be a feeling out process. I really think it might be. That might be a slow round. The second round, I think Conor's going to pick up more steam, and I think he's going to put him away in the third. I think Poirier's going to have a very good shot in the first round. I think Poirier's going to come out swinging in the first round, and Conor might kind of sit back, wait to counterpunch a little bit, wait with that left hand, unload with the left hook. You could definitely see Conor doing that, but for the most part, I think Conor's going to be able to get the job done through rounds 1 through 3. And if it gets to 4 and 5, I honestly just do not know. But what Conor has told us recently, it's going to be a war. And I think it will be a 3-round war. I think Poirier is going to have his moments. I think it's going to be a closer fight than a lot of people think. I think Dustin, really has a very good chance to win this one. But I think the Notorious one gets the job done. And now where does Conor go from here? I think he fights Khabib. I honestly think he does. I think Khabib will probably come back for this fight. And I know Dana's trying to push him along to take this fight. I think it will probably happen. If they left the door open for Khabib to come back, I think that's probably what they're waiting for. I think if Dustin wins, nothing against Poirier, I don't think Khabib comes back, and I think they honestly just give the belt to Poirier, or they do Poirier versus the winner of Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. For me, I want to see the tournament. If Khabib's really done, I want to see the winner of this fight with Poirier and Conor fight the winner of Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira. They are by far the 4 best lightweights in the division. Yes, you could say Tony Ferguson's up there, but Tony just hasn't looked himself in the last 2 fights. And yeah, you could say Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker just lost to Dustin Poirier, and Michael Chandler, I mean, he lost to Pitbull in his last 3 fights, and I'll talk about that fight, or I've already talked about this. I'm recording this one before all the other fights, but yeah, by this time in the video, I've already talked about Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. If you're watching the full card predictions, if you're just watching the solo video, you're just seeing this. But yeah, I think these are the 4 best lightweights in the world. I think we should do a tournament with those 4. If Khabib doesn't come back, if Khabib does come back, he has to fight the winner of this fight. There's no chance in hell he's fighting the winner of Michael Chandler and Dan Hooker. No chance in hell that is happening. GSP seems off the table. So I think the only fight, honestly, Khabib takes at this point is Conor McGregor. I think it is. And I know Khabib said in the past he doesn't want to give Conor the attention. The money, man. I mean, yes, I know Khabib does not fight for money, but if they left the door open, this is what they're leaving it open for. It's a Conor McGregor win, and if Poirier wins, he's fine for the belt next anyway, or they're just going to give him the title. That's that. So folks, thank y'all for watching this Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier main event preview and predictions here on the channel. If you have not yet, make sure to subscribe button down below for more. Be on the lookout for the full card predictions coming out either later today or tomorrow, so just be on the lookout for that. Again, folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba forever.